Okay, we're live. So good evening, both of you, and good evening, everyone who's watching at home or catching up with this afterwards. Welcome to the entrepreneur edition of Action Learning on the Edge. For those of you who've joined us before, you'll know this is all about talking about action learning and learning in action. And we tend to bring kind of guests of choice who've got really interesting backgrounds just to bring that to life a bit. So Richard and I are delighted to be joined this evening by Amy Stokes-Waters, fantastic entrepreneur, CEO and founder of the Cyber Escape Room Company, and sort of co-host, if you like, on a cyber podcast. That's right, isn't Amy? Unicorn Chef?
Sorry, can you just say award-winning cyber podcast?
Okay, sorry. Yes, of course. Award-winning podcast. Unicorn Chef. So yes, thanks so much for joining us this evening, Amy, particularly on such a beautiful hot evening when, frankly, we should all be in a pub garden by now. How's your day been?
It's been good, yeah. I'm actually in Scotland, so it's not as warm as it was back in England. So it's actually, yeah, it's all right. It's good.
You're looking pretty tan, though. I bet you've been in the garden quite a bit.
That is because I run my own business and can pick the hours that I work. So I tend to work in the evening and in the daytime sit outside.
Fair. Yeah, that feels like our lives, Richard, at the moment as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I'm in Cardiff, which is surprisingly warm, and I'm on the cooler side of the house at the moment, and occasionally go to the back. And in the evening, it's quite good at the back. So that's where we're going after we finish this call, maybe with just a little sundowner.
Something a bit cooler.
I've brought mine with me. I hope not.
Good work. So listen, Amy, thanks so much for joining us. And this is it's at least your second podcast appearance this week. I know you did. I caught up with your session with your mum earlier this week, which was fantastic. I don't know if, Richard, you were able to see that, but it was a great conversation.
No, I haven't seen it, but I saw that it had happened. So I now do remember seeing the shot. So I must now watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird interviewing my mom, because obviously it's your mom, so you think you kind of know most of the things that she's going to tell you. But I was like, whoa, there's like new stories coming out, and it was really cool. It talks a lot about kind of leadership and confidence in careers. So yeah, that was probably me doing the prep for this call.
Fantastic. It's very good. I might be very interested to hear a bit about that, but also I might even talk a bit about my mum.
Yeah, you've certainly got, both got kind of very interesting sort of family backgrounds, and your mum's both quite incredible, inspirational women as well. So there's probably a conversation to have there. So Amy, I'm conscious I know you pretty well. Obviously, I've been a guest on your podcast. I'd just like to say I still drew the biggest. What is it? I was the biggest audience by about 100, I think. Yeah. So I'm really chuffed that you've won that award. I think it's a great, really kind of innovative approach you've brought to that, to podcasting in general, but I think just brilliant. And it was really fun to be a guest on your show. Maybe just for listeners who don't know, sort of, wouldn't have come across you before, and for Richard as well, who this is the first time you've met, maybe just give us a bit of background on yourself.
Yeah, sure. So my background is primarily sales and marketing, a tiny bit of project management, but that was early on in my career, before I realized that I was shit at project managing. So moved rapidly into sales. And then, started my own business about 4 years ago, but went kind of all in on it by myself just over 18 months ago. So it's like late 2023. So we do security awareness training, but make it exciting. So it's using physical, experiential learning activities to kind of teach people about cybersecurity. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. And we met at an event where we were with kind of a group of learning professionals, and I think we stood out for a couple of reasons at that event. The first one was, I think we were two of the only, if maybe we were the only female entrepreneurs there who'd got our own businesses and sort of entities. And the second one was we were quite outspoken about kind of the need for imagination and experience in learning. There was a lot of talk, and Richard, this is an area you're, I know, interested in. There are a lot of providers there talking about, you know, big catalog sort of content products on AI, you know, sort of embedded with AI, but actually very few entrepreneurs that were doing anything experiential. And I think that's something that's really central to your sort of mindset, Amy, isn't it? And ours as well, Richard. You know, our products are experience based.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key word is learning. You know, learning is different to training, or, you know, it's kind of complementary, but it's different. And you can have lots of training about content, and that's pre-existing knowledge. And there's loads of AI that will do some magical things in terms of, you know, compressing it and searching it and representing it very rapidly. And we're kind of all getting to grips with that. And there's a lot of competitors in the market trying to sort of prove that theirs is better and faster than the next one. But from what we saw, it didn't, not a lot of it seemed to be about learning as such. It was more about knowledge acquisition, really. But it depends, of course, how you view learning. What is learning? For me, learning is the basics, a kind of knowledge and skills. That's the kind of fairly sort of straightforward bit. Pre-existing knowledge, you can, you know, access it and digest it, repeat it, you know, pass the tests. But for me, sort of, I'm interested in learning at a different level, really, around behavior, around change, around what I was always encouraged to think about as insights. So learning about self, learning about organizational ways of working, you know, those sorts of things, which are hard to kind of script and provide in standard training. You kind of just have to create circumstances or situations where those insights or that kind of wisdom might happen. And I'd be really interested to sort of hear, Amy, your perspective on this, because I'm very interested in the fact that you know, you said you've taken something that was fairly, you know, boring or ordinary and made it interesting. I mean, that sounds to me like that's a kind of really neat thing if you can do that. There must be some sort of, you know, smart way in which you're doing that. And how are you sort of viewing learning in cyber? What does learning really mean?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people view learning in cyber as, can we pass the test on the cyber knowledge? So it's like, here's some slides, there's a quiz at the end, do you pass the test? Tick the box, and then we'll wheel this whole process back out again in a year's time. I'm like, have you actually learned anything? Has that created any behavioral change? Is there any difference in any of the things that you're doing day to day? Or have you literally just read the answers 5 minutes ago and now are regurgitating the answers 5 minutes later on a form? Which I find is what a lot of training is. But what I wanted to do was kind of really bring behavioral change into it. So what we do is make people experience cybersecurity. So we've got 4 or 5 different escape room scenarios that we run through now that have all got, I mean, there's some overlap in terms of the learning outcomes, because a lot of stuff around basic security awareness is just central to everything that we do. So like password security, social engineering, social media privacy, those things come up regularly. And then, but they've got kind of a different lens on them. So we've got one experience where you play the part of the hacker and you find a backpack on a train. You've got to then try and steal some money out of that person's bank account using the stuff that's in the bag. But you're working as a team, which I think is important when it comes to learning, because a lot of training that we do at work, especially, seems to be solo. But I always think, well, we don't, when I'm working, I'm not working in a silo all the time. There's sometimes when I have to work in a silo, but a lot of the time I'm working in a group, because my strengths then come into the group and other people's strengths come into it, and we're stronger as a team. So I never understand why we do training solo.
Yeah, individually, yeah.
That's so interesting, because I think, like, when I think about, you know, what tends to go wrong from a security or risk perspective, it's a systemic issue. Like there's probably something in the culture, or there's a bit of maybe there's a culture where people are, like you say, working in silos, whereas people together, they're much stronger. And so you should be training in the context you're working in. It's like there's much better transfer to real life. It strikes me that a lot of, you know, not just cyber, but in a lot of cyber training and risk training, it is individual, and it's very boring, to be honest.
Well, I mean, training by yourself is boring anyway, because I learn a lot more by having the discussion with someone else. So if I'm in a when I'm stuck on a problem, I don't sit there by myself and consider the problem. I ring around my group of friends and go, right, I've got this problem. I'm going to tell you what I think. Throw some ideas at me, and we'll talk it through. So why would all of your other training and all of the other learning that you do be like totally different to that? It's because it's a box exercise for a lot of organizations. But by doing it as a group as well, we're not just we're then doubling up on what that training provides. So it's not just providing security awareness training, but it's also providing like soft skills training. So you can can learn how to work as a team, and you can do problem solving and lateral thinking, because there's like logic. It's not just all security awareness puzzles that are in there. There's like logic puzzles and I don't know, stuff like that. There's different types of challenges in there that, and if you work together as a team, like one of you might be really, really shit at doing code breaking, but one of you might be amazing at it. Well, that's great. So the one who's rubbish at it, don't you do it then. You do it as a team and play together. Because we've had customers say to us before, well, what if we've got somebody who's dyslexic? I'm like, well, they don't do the reading bit then. They do the physical puzzle.
And that's what real team.
How do they do it? How do they do it at work? Well, presumably there's someone who's much better. They're not getting a job as a fucking proofreader either. If they're dyslexic, they're getting a job that doesn't require that skill. So you don't need to use that skill as part of this bit of training.
So what you're talking about is, I describe it as simulation or modeling of reality, which is far more enriching anyway. When you take people into an environment that's just like their real life or their real work, then they're much more likely to engage with it in the same way they would in their real work. And I'm interested in your views on this, because it's kind of similar to what we're doing in one of our products. This kind of reality.
Yeah, well, it is. To some extent, I think it is. I mean, I love the idea that you're putting people through the exercises, working collaboratively as groups. I totally agree that, a lot of traditional training has in the past been very sort of, individually oriented. It then becomes kind of competitive, and then it becomes a sort of, how do we game the system, and how do I, work out what's the design around the test so that I can pass it. And then I've worked out how to do that. I might be generous and tell my mate how you do it. And then actually, we forget it all, and it doesn't result in any behavioral change. And actually, the sustainability or retention of any kind of change or any knowledge kind of, plummets. But by then, the trainers have disappeared, so they got away with it, So it's inputs. That's right. It's not outputs. So the focus is on inputs. And in the past, I know we used to work in corporate learning and development, and we used to often sort of count the number of training days. And this was just kind of dealing with inputs. And I kind of discovered this whole approach called action learning with a whole theory, proven theory behind it, and it's what I've been doing for the last 25 years. But it is essentially embracing what you said, Amy, that people learn in one you said they work together in groups, and so you want to create a situation where they're working together and learning together. But yes, I agree, we also learn, a lot of the key learning, not the scripted learning, actually happens socially. It's a social process. And it's not just an individual competitive process, where it works really well over the kind of the mysteries or the complex kind of problems. It's because of people collaborating, actually. And as you say, playing to strengths, recognizing each other's strengths and weaknesses and differences. And also, for me, asking questions as well. I don't know to what extent that happens in the cyber escape rooms that you run, Amy, but where does questioning feature? Because in action learning, that's a key principle, that you're trying to solve something that's complex or work on something that's complex. If you can't go to the kind of books, for the knowledge, you have to go to the questions and ask good questions.
Yeah.
So how does that sort of feature in your world, questioning?
Yeah, I don't. So there's not really. I guess what we do different to a lot of other people that do. So we're not the only escape room provider on the market for cybersecurity. There are other ones. A lot of the other ones that I've seen mandate like a workshop afterwards, where it's like, I think it's a bit carrot and stick. Like, yeah, you've got to do this escape room, which is the fun bit, but now we're going to bat you over the head with a load of shit about cybersecurity for an hour. We took that bit out. We don't do that bit at all. I'm like, you should be able to learn the things that you need to learn in this escape room. But then at the end, we provide everyone with an opportunity. Well, actually, I refuse to give them any lecture and tell them what they've learned. So I actually sit there and go, you tell me what you've learned.
Yeah.
I do the question to them and go, what did you learn? And they then, well, help me shape what my marketing looks like, because I'm like, shit, you learned something that I'd not even thought about, because I think people bring a different perspective to what they've gone through. So I pick up new learning outcomes from the stuff that we're doing all the time, but that's from me kind of having that conversation with them.
So
they own it as well, don't they? If you're encouraging them to describe what they've learned, when they have to think about what they have learned, they have to voice it, and they're more likely to own it, aren't they?
Yeah, but I don't think, in terms of like the questioning piece, I don't really think there's any not that I can think of off the top of my head. I don't think there's any like specific questioning process that we've got.
Well, it might be to do with the nature of the product and what you're actually looking to enable people to learn. I don't know, because it's not my world. The question, I suppose, is to what extent do your cyber rooms and challenges, is there a known answer? Is there a correct answer that you're trying to get to? And they've got to kind of solve the puzzle to get to that.
So there's always it's like a linear storyline. So we've all got different storylines. So I'm really hot on building a proper narrative that goes along with the escape room, because I think people buy into a story. So if you can buy into that story and we can make it believable enough for you to kind of suspend belief and pretend that you're a hacker for a half an hour, or pretend that you're part of a security team, or what's the other one? Part of Sherlock Holmes's team doing some investigation or whatever. If we can suspend belief for long enough, by having a strong narrative in there and puzzles that kind of fit that narrative and documentation and props and things that kind of help you with that, then you buy into it. If you bought into it, then you're engaged in it. So then you actually start paying attention to the things that you're doing. And I think that's where I've seen other awareness providers do something similar. That's where I've seen them fall down, because I've looked at it and been like, well, what's the fucking story? Like, where's this going? Which character am I playing? Like, what's the aim of it? Whereas everything that we do's got a really clear aim. So it's like, you're the hacker, steal some money. If you've stolen the money, you've got the right answer.
Right. Okay. So that's I guess that's the different shell, isn't it, in terms of the sort of pure action learning, wicked problems, sort of in a kind of organizational development context. Is why we go with questions, because there isn't a kind of a known way of doing it. You've got to kind of try something out, test it a bit, see what happens in practice, discuss that with a group, then sort of do something different again, and you go through those cycles really of action, thinking, sharing, discussing, reflecting, doing it again.
I feel like I do that as a business owner, but I don't make the people who are training do that.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Yeah, I bet you do. Yeah.
Two things. Well, the first thing I'm noticing is I'm struggling to get a word in edgeways, which is brilliant. The second thing I'm noticing is we've gone completely off piece, which I kind of expected us to do, in that we had a set of questions, didn't we, about action learning, but actually I see more similarities in what we do than differences. So I think, like you say, we both have an event-based process, but yours is very like, you're right, there is a right answer. There is to a degree, a wrong answer, but there are many, many ways to get there. And I think that's the beauty of gamification. So I see we have a process, strategic orbits exercise, which I think a little bit about, which is, I think the similarity is that you create a kind of event, you create a kind of mode, and then it's actually the people coming into the room that create narrative. So they're working in the moment on an event, which is doing it's working at a number of levels. It's working on them as a team. So they're kind of dynamic, their resilience, they're kind of, if you like, they're forming as a team or performing. It's also working on their awareness. But I actually think it's probably, having not been into one of your events, it's more than awareness, isn't it? It's kind of, I'd say it sounds like it's working on their risk psyche and their kind of approach, actually, which I'd say is more akin to behavior change, which is quite similar to our event.
Yeah, I mean, we've had testimonials from more than one customer that have said it's been the most effective bit of training that they've done to change behaviors around password policies and password hygiene. So clearly batting people over the head doesn't work.
But I guess
you're giving them something exciting to do and showing the consequences of it going wrong, but in a safe environment where it's just a fucking fake bank account that we've created. We can show you what those consequences would be, and that's relatable to you. I think that's the problem with a lot of training. It's not relatable to the people doing it. So I was on a podcast earlier this week saying the problem with cyber security training, and you might find this with other with this kind of training you do, the people that create it are way more interested in it than the people doing it.
Yeah.
So people in cyber, but people in cyber who are creating this training think everyone is as enthusiastic about cyber as they are.
Yeah.
They're not. They're not at all. They don't care. I said to someone the other day, people not in cyber look at us lot and go, "You are a fucking nerd," right? We're really cool, but we all think we're really cool because we're the coolest one of all of the nerds, right? But everyone else is still like, "But you're still a nerd. Go away." So I don't want to learn this stuff. So I said, we've got to start instead of taking the people to the material, take the material to the people.
Yeah. And I think that is a commonality we have, which we tend to export what we do to organizations and set it up in a way that is accessible for them to meet them where they are. Richard, I'm interested in what your thoughts are.
Well, I mean, it sounds to me like, Amy, like you it works for you on two levels. One is the kind of logical, kind of, technical side of it in terms of, what you want people to do or not do. The other side is emotionally. So it sounds to me like the way you're actually getting to people is by engaging them emotionally. So you found a really sort of neat way of doing that quite rapidly. And, maybe it's sort of kind of gamified, but it's it's relevant and real. So for me, that's kind of influence. That's good influencing, isn't it? Because you need to use emotion to get people's attention and to get them interested. But you then got to have the logic for them to remain kind of changed or to change the behavior over time. Yeah. So sounds like you're working at both levels.
Yeah, we recently, so we used to say that we were doing security awareness, but we've recently changed it to say that we are ACE, A for awareness, C for culture, E for engagement.
Yeah.
I think what we can do with, so we do physical escape rooms, but we've got some digital products as well, but they're also interactive. There's a persona in each of those physical digital products that we've got that you interact with. So even though you might be working solo because it's you interacting with an AI or it's you interacting with a chatbot that we've built, you feel like you're working with someone because there's another person there talking to you. So we're still trying to create like groupthink or team-based learning, but without having to have a person there all the time, which is actually, AI is really fucking useful for that.
It is. Interacting with an agent, well, as we've discovered quite recently, Richard, it elicits the same human reactions as a human would, which I know you've got a new product, Amy, your vishing kind of simulation, which is, Richard, you probably haven't seen this yet, but it's brand new product from Amy's company, which is, it simulates voice phishing. So people ringing your phone. The simulation is so realistic. It's akin to what we would call a real play. It's not a play. It feels, it's so real. It is real. It's agentic. It's very similar in nature to what we're doing with agentic AI, with kind of persona based agentic AI. But I mean, I think it's as long as you're stimulating that human reaction, I think that's the exciting area of what we do. And this is great. We were going to have a conversation about business, but actually we are, because it's about creativity and business.
That's right. But I think maybe we could pick up on something that you said earlier, Amy, where you said, when I was talking about wicked problems and the kind of complex problems where there's not a known answer. You're saying, no, I don't think I do that with escape rooms, but I do think that's what I do in my own business.
Yes.
So maybe we could, Shell, kind of touch on this. I'm quite interested in the kind of, this is sort of billed as the entrepreneurial on the edge. And I quite like existing on the edge. It's kind of where I've operated for a number of years. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs do operate on the edge as well, or on the boundaries. Yeah. So Are you okay that we just sort of shift that way, Shell?
Yeah. So I mean, I know Amy well enough to know there are sort of two sides to Amy. There's this really creative side that is really manifested in the products that you've designed. You know, you've got a background in we did the same uni degree, English, and with a real interesting story. And I think you've built that into the products. And then there's this really business focused side of you that you're really techie, you're really organized, and you're I think you're a very strong character and a strong leader. So yeah, how do those two sides of you manifest in how you lead your business?
Well, I think I have to switch between the two regularly because I'm currently scaling the business in terms of the product set that we've got and in terms of the number of escape room scenarios we've got. It's also the lead up to Security Awareness Month. So everyone's fucking asking me questions all the time. And I've promised people new escape room scenarios on deadlines, and I hate missing a deadline. So I'm working like 25,000 hours to get them done. Being creative on demand, by the way, not as fucking easy as it sounds.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we're getting there. But yeah, I think I like the job that I do because I could never do a job where I was just being creative all the time, because being creative all the time is so hard. Like coming up with new ideas constantly. I'm like, fuck. But I do have, but then I go through like days and weeks where I'm like, right, idea. But then I need like the downtime. My brain needs to switch mode and go, right, execute that now.
I'm exactly the same as that. I have to transition between modes regularly, and when I'm forced into a mode where, like at the moment, we're doing we're preparing for a product launch we're really excited about, the creative is easy, but actually doing all of the process then and constantly context switching between one and the other is quite exhausting for me. So I don't know if you relate to that, but yeah,
that's why I've got a really, really good operations manager now. all of this admin stuff and process stuff that I'm never going to get done because I hate finishing anything.
Yeah.
Like whatever the opposite of complete a finisher is, that's me. I will actually start a million projects and then I have to kind of slowly nudge them all along at once because I can't just concentrate on one because I'm like, oh, there's something shiny over there. So I'm currently launching 2 digital products, 2 brand new escape rooms, putting a new financial operational processes in place. And managing single parenthood and a long distance relationship. So there's lots of fucking things going on all the time.
Yeah. So
go on.
So I was just going back to something you said when you introduced yourself, Amy. Sales and marketing. I'm a sales marketing person, and then you described the specific product that you're working on at the moment and that you're having great success with. Cyber escape rooms. So I'm interested in entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurial side of things, and the qualities of the entrepreneur. So, and also how you define yourself as I'm a sales and marketing person. So are you a sales and marketing person who happens to have sort of, tried a few things and you've found a particular niche which is really going well at the moment, which happens to be cyber escape rooms? Or are you somebody who's kind of become interested in cyber kind of security, and you kind of need to do a bit of sales and marketing around that and have some products?
So I've always been in tech sales, so that's always been my background. Right. So that was an easy decision as to which industry to decide to sell things in, because my network is predominantly cybersecurity people. So let's not make it fucking difficult for ourselves. But yeah, no, I do always describe myself as a sales and marketing person, but I think to be an entrepreneur, a successful one, you need to have an understanding of sales and marketing. The tech shit, you can outsource that to anyone. Literally anyone. Most development companies, if I've got an idea for something, they'll build me an MVP of it. And then once I've got the MVP, if I can sell that MVP into other people, but I've got to get them on board with it. So I've got to be good at the storytelling. I've got to be good at the branding. I've got to be good at having conversations with people. I've got to be good at saying, not here's the features of the products that I've got, here's the benefits of the products that I've got, and relating that back to what their problems are. So I've got to be able to sit and listen to what they're telling me. And when I'm building the product, so I've seen so many tech entrepreneurs spend weeks and months and even years in some cases building a product, taking it to market, and then everyone goes, what the fuck's that for? We do. I literally go, I've got an idea. Post. Ask a few of my friends, do you think this sounds like a good idea? They go, no. I'm like, all right, shit, next one. Until I get one they go, yeah. And then I'll go, right, let's build an MVP. And I'll communicate with whoever I need to in my network to go, right, I've had this really fucking great idea. You need to get on board with it. Let's build an MVP. And it will literally be like held together by a sticky tape. But I can show you something then. And once I can show you something, then you can people don't want to be told it can do anything. They want to be told, here's, if you say to someone, my product can do anything, everyone's like, and I don't know what that means. There's too much there for me to think about. If you show someone a product and goes, this is the product, I can guarantee you everyone will go, ooh, but could it do this? Ooh, could it? And then suddenly you've got a product roadmap built for you, which is exactly what we've done with the Vision product. I've showed someone a phone call. I showed you, Michelle, that phone call.
Yeah.
When we started building that product, that was all we had. Right, just a phone call.
So
that's all we had. But yes, we just had a phone call. Now we've built now we're building a whole platform off the back of that because we've showed it to enough people who've gone, oh, could it do this? Oh, could we? And then you start the discussions about it. But I'm not building a product and then taking it to market without the product market fit already being there.
Yeah.
And the thing that you need as an entrepreneur, well, A, the ability to understand that whole process, but B, the ability to have an idea, find out it's shit, and be totally okay with ditching it. That is the other second big thing you need as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So there's
I think you're kind of underselling, in a way, how central you are to the product as well. So the products relate to your personality, and you relate to your market. Because, like, you know, we've talked a bit about how we're quite different, quite creative. I think you resonate with the market you're selling into as well. Like, you get on with people in cyber. They're your mates. They're the people you relate to as well. So I think that authenticity is quite important, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, I think so. But I hope that our products can stand up without me being a part of it. Well, I know they do, because I've been like totally excluded from sales cycles with many customers whose names I don't know some of our customers, because my sales guy does it all. So they're not buying from me. They might be buying because they like the feel of the product or the content that's in it or whatever, which is technically still me. But it's not me personally that they're buying from. Yeah. And I think you're in a shit position as an entrepreneur past the startup stage if that's the position that you're in.
Well, as in if your business model is sold,
your entire business is built around you as a person. Like startup mode, of course it's going to be, because how the fuck else are you going to get people to like you? People don't know who your brand is, so they've got to like something, and you are the easiest thing to talk about, right? But once you get past that kind of first stage, your product, if you're doing product sales, needs to stand up by itself without it being, oh, that product is that person. Like if you're going on your website and looking at what's the top 10 searches, your name shouldn't be in that list.
So I'm interested in, because I think we're dealing with some of the unexpected here, where we've kind of just got straight into product development, and I get that because we've got quite similar products. So how do you think entrepreneurs can prepare for the unexpected when they start a business, or do you think it just happens as you go? Because the experience of building a business for me has been completely different to what I expected. Do you think there's anything that could prepare you for the unexpected, or you just kind of just go with it and you have to be willing to take the risks as they come?
I think my dad said this to me the other week. You said to me, Amy, you take all the risks, so you should take all the reward. I think we were talking about increases in corporation tax, and he was like, it's fucking bullshit. You should take loads of risks. You should get the reward for it. So I get taxed. But yeah, so I think being an entrepreneur is inherently risky, and you've just got to be prepared to roll with the punches. Like, I have days and weeks and maybe longer where I'm sitting there going, what the fuck have I done this for? Why am I doing this? I'm like working until 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. And I'm sat there going, I'm not spending any time with my daughter. I'm literally, I haven't got time to eat food. I've got so many things that I'm doing. Why have I decided to do this? And I'm like, no one's buying anything. I don't rubbish. And then I'll get a purchase order the next day, and I'll be like, yes, this is what I do. I'm back on top again. And it's such a roller coaster of emotions all the fucking time.
So do you think what makes you an entrepreneur is that you are a risk taker and you enjoy those peaks and troughs? Or do you think it's something that over time anyone can acquire, that kind of mindset?
Do I think anyone can acquire it? So there's quite a lot of debate on LinkedIn about it, where it's like anyone can be an entrepreneur. So what is it you need now? Like 50 quid to company's house?
Yes, I mean, it's not, the investment isn't huge.
No, that is the barrier to entry. That is it. But should everyone do it? Should they fuck? No.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people who do try it, you know, they end up sort of giving it 6 months and go back into the kind of
if you give it 6 months, come on, mate, get a grip. You've not even had
maybe they do a year.
You've not even done a tax return after 6 months.
Like and there's a lot of people that see an entrepreneur and they actually sort of see the glossy side of it.
Yeah,
and get seduced by that and think, yeah, well, I can do that. It looks pretty straightforward, and you know, they don't see the sort of behind the scenes, those, as you say, those emotional ups and downs, you know, from day to day, the resilience you really need.
Especially when you first start, you have to learn to be good at everything. Like really fucking quick. And when I first started 4 years ago, ChatGPT wasn't really a thing. I think now it's a lot fucking easier. I was on it the other day going, help me sort out our Xero subscription. I need it to look prettier than it does. I need some better dashboards or whatever. And it just answered all the questions. So I just copied and pasted that, sent it to my ops manager and went, here, just follow these instructions. Done. Which makes it so much easier. So
yes, I was just going to say, you've got to have a growth mindset and you've got to be willing to grow quite quickly. I can honestly say, after like 20 years in the army, where I thought I kind of was working hard and learning quite rapidly, this is the hardest I've worked and it's the most I've learned on a daily basis. And every day I reach something where I don't know how to do it and I have to find a way to work it through, which is the epitome of action learning, by the way.
Learning by doing it. I always think, well, it's like when I renovated my house, me and my dad was like, well, how much money have you got to renovate your house? And I was like, not a fucking lot, because I'm poor and I've just bought a house, which needs ripping out and starting again. He was like, right, we'll have a go at it. Have a go at doing the things first. And if you fuck it up catastrophically, then we'll get a professional. I'll do it, or we'll get a professional in. And I was like, oh, great idea. And that's exactly what I do in my business. I'm like, I'll have a go at it. Oh, shit at that, right? I'll give it to anyone else in the team. We'll have a go at this first before I have to go pay someone actually to do it. And we all learn like that. But I think it's great. I let my team do that as well. I encourage my team. I'm like, have a go at it.
So that saves a lot of money and a lot of time. And I was kind of taking Amy through the other day around kind of just the sort of how action learning works. And essentially it's about, Richard, action happening at each stage, isn't it? And you kind of, you know, you don't wait to acquire all of the program knowledge before you start acting on that insight. You know, that insight kind of, it's as mature as it is in the moment, and then you act on it. And that surfaces more insight that if you don't have the knowledge, you then acquire it. So it's a very, I think, empowering process. And it's interesting hearing you describe it in real time. Richard,
Well, yeah. And of course, there's a risk associated with that, isn't there? And, you know, even if you look back at the theory of action learning, it recognizes the fact that, you know, in order to take action, you have to personally take risk. And whether that's risk of getting it wrong, whether that's financial risk, whether that's embarrassment or reputation or whatever. So, yeah, I think it's one of those things which is kind of, you explain action learning, it's quite easy to explain what it is. Groups of people working together on problem solving by asking questions, taking action and reflecting on that. You know, that kind of makes sense. But actually doing it in practice is a lot harder than saying it. Because if you take qualities like taking risk, you know, I don't think everybody has equal sort of risk, you know, aptitude, do they? Some people just don't have it at all. And those people that might think, oh, I'd quite like to be an entrepreneur, I've seen them try to do it. They don't have the inner risk, you know, taking quality.
When I quit my full-time job, I had 2 months' wage in the bank.
Yeah.
I had a 7-year-old, well, she was 5 at the time, I think 4 or 5 at the time. I had a baby, and I'm the only breadwinner, I'm the single parent, and I had a mortgage. And I was like, well, I guess if I quit now, then I've pretty much got to make it work, because if I don't, I'm in a fucking house. most people don't do that. I've learned. Apparently, most people wait until they've got I've heard some people be like, "Oh, I want at least 2 years' wage in the bank." I'm like, mate, what planet do you live on? Like, where do you
it's never going to happen. No, stay with what you're doing. I mean, if you've got to cope with the ups and downs of the economy, of what's going on in the world. I've worked on my own since 1990, building my kind of reputation, business, products, etc. And worked through certainly 3 recessions. A recession when I started, then the global financial crisis, more recently, COVID, etc. And how do you cope with that? I kind of find that I have to manage my own self-talk. I have to kind of have a good talk with myself every now and again, basically, be resilient, and say, kind of trust you've done it so far. It's not gonna, you've got to trust yourself,
So I refuse to get funding for our business, partly because I don't want a boss. So I started my business because I wanted to just work for myself. My friend was saying to me, "How the fuck do you cope with that?" And I was like, quite like the threat. I love the threat of my house could go at any time because it keeps me so fucking motivated to carry on going. Because we make money, but then I reinvest that money back in the business.
Yeah, and it strikes me.
In which case, I'll be really rich, hopefully. But yeah, everything that we're making on the physical escape, we just go straight back in to build more fucking cool shit. So I'm constantly like, could lose the house. No, new purchase orders in. We're good.
So you're kind of you're saying you're doing what you say you do, in that you've designed products that you believe in. Right. And I think it's the same with you, Richard, and like what we're building is, do I believe in what I'm selling? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have days where I wake up in a cold sweat and think, oh God, does anyone want to buy it? Yes. But we know it works and we believe in it. And so I think that makes the process of risk taking a little bit easier. But I've seen plenty of people, like Richard said, who are they are seduced by the idea of being an entrepreneur. But actually the reality of it is quite different. You've got to really believe in what you're actually doing.
I think my background in sales, I always said I can't sell something I don't believe in. So if I don't think the product's any good, I'm not fucking selling it. Because I read a book or heard this anyway, that selling is the transfer of confidence from the salesperson to the buyer. So if I'm confident in the product, I'm 100% confident in it. I've got to just transfer my 100% of confidence over to you for you to then sign a purchase order. If I'm not 100% confident in it, you're not going to fucking buy it then, are you? Because I'm going to sit there going, yeah, it's all right. Like, if I don't believe in it, and to be a good entrepreneur, you need that kind of same attitude as, I 100% believe in this. Because if you don't believe in it, why would anyone who works for you then want to work for you and believe in what you're doing as well? And why would any customers want to buy from you if you're lacking that belief?
So what I'm noticing in that is kind of there is a difference between a good salesperson and a good entrepreneur, which is, certainly in your and our framework, we've created something that we believe in enough to sell. Whereas I think a good salesperson could potentially sell anything well.
I still think they need to believe in it. They've got to have confidence in that product, because as a salesperson, your reputation's on the line every time you do a sale. So if that product's shit, that a customer is going to come back complaining and they're not going to do a repeat order with you.
Yeah, fair.
You're not going to want to sell it, are you?
So maybe a better. Sorry, Richard, go on.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, maybe a better question to sort of end on is, what is an entrepreneur not? So, we've talked a bit about, I think we kind of get what it is, risk-taking, the ability to kind of, I think there is an inherent creativity to entrepreneurship, because you're creating something, whatever your field, you're creating something that has you represented in it in some way. So there's innate creativity and ideation to it. There's a degree of sort of, I think, streetwiseness as well, or kind of savviness to understand the market you're selling into. But what is it not? Like we've talked about, people who perhaps are romantic about entrepreneurship. I don't think those aren't the skills, being idealistic isn't going to get you across the line, essentially.
Right. It's not a walk in the park, is it? So all them people who are like, you should quit your 9 to 5 and just sell these fucking PDFs or whatever shite on TikTok and Google and Instagram, I say all the time, quit your 9 to 5, because that's bullshit. That's working way too hard. You can just get passive income by Instagram reels. People look at that and think that's entrepreneurship. It's not. That's a fucking pyramid scheme. That's just horse shit. That's definitely not what entrepreneurship is.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship is, I've got something that I believe in and I want to fight for it. So it can't just be passive. It's got, back to active learning again, action learning again. It's got to be you're active in that process. It's not a passive thing that happens to you. Entrepreneurship, you're driving it. You've got to be that leader. You can't sit there and just let it happen to you.
Yeah, I think that's right. And Richard, go on.
I was just going to say, that I know I'm aware of time, but there was a person who I met a few years ago he's a billionaire and was lauded as a great entrepreneur. He founded one of the most successful cell phone companies in the early days. And I asked him the question, about being an entrepreneur. And he said, well, I'm not an entrepreneur, am I? I was really shocked. Like, how can you say you're not an entrepreneur? The whole nation thinks you're an entrepreneur. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I've only done it once. And that was quite interesting. His view on himself was quite self-critical. That I've only done it with one business. And I thought about it. And I recognized that his kind of big thing that he was really concerned about was the customer experience. He was so hot on the whole concept of the customer experience. A couple of years later, I walked out of his office, and a couple of years later, noticed that he'd set up one of the biggest burger chains in the country, customer experience. So he'd done it a second time. So I just wonder if he now considers that he's a retired, probably entrepreneur, but there's something driving him personal, something quite self-critical as well. And his kind of self-image was probably a bit different to how he was seen by people externally.
I think that's such a powerful point to kind of close on, which is if you don't mind me saying, I feel like I know you both well enough to say that we're all quite hard on ourselves in different ways. We have high standards, and those standards might not be kind of orthodox standards or kind of the expected status quo type standards of society. I think we're all quite different in our own ways. And I don't think necessarily we display the hustle, if you like, that kind of society would naturally reward. But we are all really hard on ourselves. So like Amy, I've noticed, your business model is scaling exponentially at the moment. You're selling, a new product really amazingly into a market that really needs it. And it's kind of, you're probably already looking to the next thing. We got verbal confirmation of an order from a massive bank for this product that I've not actually finished building yet. And my boyfriend was like, that's like a seminal moment in your business. You've just literally switched to being a software company. Like, that's crazy. And I was like, yeah, anyway, but I've got like these million other things that I'm doing. And so I didn't even register. So we have to wrap up because there's a bottle of bubbly outside waiting for me. That guy.
A seminal moment that I'm not recognizing, but he is recognizing because he's.
Yeah.
But just can I just say, and we all operate on the edge as well. I mean, that's the kind of entrepreneurial quality, I believe. I've been told I even sit on the edge when I go into a group. I sit on the edge of the group, and I'm kind of looking out and looking in. People have told me that, and I feel comfortable. Some people feel really uncomfortable on the edge and on the border and on the boundaries. It's kind of where I tend to operate, and I think maybe we do as well.
I think we all do. But on that note, congratulations for the big news this week, and for your latest podcast episode for Unicorn Chef and the award. So it's quite a month within a big year, within a big week. So, but yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Amy. Go enjoy the rest of your evening and a bottle of bubbly with Dane, and we'll look forward to chatting soon.
Yeah, see you soon.
All right, take care. Thanks a lot. Bye.